Let's have us a throwdown, shall we?
Oh, we shall. So tonight we're going to be throwing down on the top two receivers that are going in your 2020 drafts, and that is Michael Thomas and Davante Adams. According to 4for4's ADP, Michael Thomas is wide receiver 1, coming off boards at 105, and then Davante Adams is coming off at wide receiver 2 at 108. So basically why we wanted to do this one is because those are your top two receiver options, right? If all these running backs are flying off the board and you don't want to, maybe you think it's too early to take Henry or Cook, or, you don't want to reach on Mixon or someone like Miles Sanders, who we are high on, I'm going to be arguing for one, Michael Thomas. Kev, I'm going to give you the floor. You are going to be arguing for Davante Adams. So why are you taking Davante Adams over Michael Thomas if faced with that decision in drafts?
First, before you do, if you could be so kind to please click that like button, it really helps us in our helps YouTube see the video, and also hit that subscribe button. Really helps us grow. We're really trying to grind this thing out. We really appreciate all the support we're getting from everybody. We're really starting to see positive growth. So if you can just hit that subscribe button, we'll be forever in your debt, and we promise to win you a championship this year. So, anyways, Davante Adams, let's go. This is easy for me, right? One, listen, Michael Thomas is a beast. There is no doubt. And Davante Adams and Michael Thomas are very similar players. Their fantasy production is tied directly to how many targets they're going to get. If they lose targets, they are certainly going to lose production, right, in terms of fantasy points. And now you may say, Kevin, yeah, but that's obvious. That happens with every fantasy player. Not so fast, my friend. We have guys like Tyreek Hill, who can crush, who was wide receiver 2 in 2018 on 137 targets, where Davante Adams, Michael Thomas, they are typically guys that need 170, 180 targets for them to really maximize their floor or maximize their ceiling, right? Because they are not field stretchers. They are not somebody that's going to have a high yard per target average, and that is the problem. However, that is what I love so much about Davante Adams this year. Davante Adams currently right now, he's averaged 10.6 targets per game. 30.3 target share, which was third best in the league, was targeted on 29% of his routes, 17.6 fantasy points per game, 82 receptions, 997 yards, 5 touchdowns, 16 red zone receptions, was third best. Also led the league with 45% target rate in the red zone, 12th in yards after the catch, 12 yards per reception was 66, and he was 2.8 yards per pass route, which was 5th. 6th in fantasy points per pass route. So the positives for him is they've added no competition this offseason. We were all waiting for it. We were all like, okay, who are they going to draft here in the first round? So many wide receivers. Are they going to take Denzel Mims? Were they going to try to trade up and get like a Jalen Reagor? They had to pair somebody for Aaron Rodgers because his team was not very far away from a Super Bowl, right? Aaron Rodgers is declining. He's on the backside of his career. They're going to have to add some pieces here so he can finally cook again, because right now it was Allen Lazard, Marcus Valdez-Scantling, Geronimo Allison left to I believe the Lions. Equanimeous St. Brown, who got hurt last year, is still there. Like, it is a hodgepodge group of players. So we knew that they were going to add a wide receiver, except for, nope, spoiler alert, they didn't. They added fucking, a quarterback, Jordan Love, in the first round, which everybody was like, what are they doing? And then on top of that, they come back and add A.J. Dillon in the second round.
Hold my beer. Watch this.
Yes, which was fucking awful. And so now Davante Adams is in line for book it, as long as he stays healthy, 180 targets. Could go more. He is the only target that Aaron Rodgers has. He doesn't really have a tight end. Jay Sternberger, which we kind of like as maybe a late round guy, but not somebody that I'm anticipating to have a huge role. Aaron Jones is certainly going to get targets out of the backfield, but Davante Adams is going to get peppered with target. And so for me, I think he certainly can maintain that 30% target share that he saw last year. I have questions about Michael Thomas. Obviously, he was the wide receiver 1 last year. He's going to have some regression. I'm not calling for a ton, but he's going to have a little bit. We get Alvin Kamara back completely healthy this year, which he was hurt most of all of last year, which is really what hurt his production. He's super involved in the passing game. I think, they added Emmanuel Sanders as well, which I think could take a little bit away from his pie. I'm not calling for some massive drop-off in targets. I think he probably ends up somewhere maybe 150, 160 range. That's still fantastic. But if I'm taking and I'm wanting to just plant my flag on a player that I feel 100% confident in, is going to be Davante Adams or probably Tyreek Hill for me, were the two guys that I would really want. But Davante Adams is just a slam dunk. There's just no way that I could see it. He has the 7th most PPR points per game since 2014. He's only 4 receivers last year saw 20% of their team's total targets in over 90% of their games. The list was Michael Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins, Allen Robinson, and then obviously Davante Adams. He also ran the 4th. He was also 4th in slot yards per route run. So there's so many things here to like about Davante Adams' profile. So that's what I love so much about him, and that's pretty much all I got.
So I can't even say anything disparaging about Davante Adams, because if I end up with him as like my consolation prize, so to speak, and I don't get Michael Thomas, like I'm fine with that. But between the two, I'm taking Michael Thomas 8 times out of 10. Honestly, I mean you're looking at a guy who. So the thing with Davante Adams is he needs those targets. You were talking about guys who are going to fall off if they go from the 180 to the 140. We've seen Michael Thomas be a top end wide receiver 1 with 140 targets up until last year. Last year I think he had 180, 170, something like that. But the 2 years prior to, he had less than 150. I think he was around 149 and 147 those 2 years. Finished wide receiver 7 and wide receiver 5 those years. His rookie year, he only had 121 targets, and he finished as wide receiver 11. We saw he was still able to produce without Drew Brees at the helm. Obviously, we want Drew Brees throwing him the ball because he's one of the most accurate quarterbacks we've seen possibly ever. With the addition of Emmanuel Sanders, that's the only guy that they brought in on the Saints. I mean, I guess if you want to talk about Troutman, but I still think that's going to be Jared Cook running the tight end 1 position this year. I think Troutman's still 2-3 years out. But even with the addition of Emmanuel Sanders, you want to bring Michael Thomas's targets back down to that 140 range. That is completely fine with me, because the only thing I think you could say for going against Michael Thomas is the targets coming down. We've seen the decline in Drew Brees in terms of his overall passing attempts over the past several years. But in 2018, Drew Brees threw less than 500 times, and Michael Thomas still saw nearly 150 targets. I don't think that he throws that few times again this year, especially considering the Saints have the 10th most difficult schedule according to Sharp Football Stats, which again, you always have to take that with a grain of salt. But maybe we see the targets tick up and they aren't able to hand the ball off as much as they want to in this offense. But Michael Thomas is just going to be, he has one of the highest ceiling and highest floor combinations, which is typically something you don't get in with your fantasy players. Normally you have to take away from one of those. You either have the really high floor with the low ceiling, or you have the high ceiling and the low floor. But Michael Thomas gives you both. He is one of the safest first round picks I think you can make. I mean, if you look at his 4-year average in terms of what he's done production wise, it's absolutely ridiculous. You're looking at 117 catches, almost 1,400 yards, and 8 touchdowns, just as an average over 4 years. And nothing really blew up for him up until this year. He's just been super steady. And like I said, it's nothing really against Davante Adams, because if I end up having to take him as my second wide receiver off the board, I'm fine with that, but I definitely want Michael Thomas over Davante Adams. Like I said, eight times out of 10.
Yeah, I don't hate that. And it's like I said, you look at Michael Thomas. He was 70th in yards per reception last year at 11.6. His yards per target was 9.3, which was 21st, which is still not good. And his average target distance was 8.3, which was 89th in the league. So that is the only thing that concerns me a little bit. If, like I said, if he loses any significant targets, that's going to be a problem. Obviously, his 149 receptions is likely to come down a little bit. He still had 1,700 yards, 9 touchdowns on 149 receptions. The dude's still going to be a beast. He only had 9 deep targets, which was 72nd in the league. Hate that as well. But I do think we probably see a little bit of regression. Not much. Like I said, if you want to take him as your number 1, so be it. I would take Davante Adams. If I had the 105, I would not be taking Michael Thomas. I would much rather go running back there like Dalvin Cook, who probably will be on the board, or Alvin Kamara, before I wanted to take Michael Thomas. Now, if I'm sitting on the board at 108 and 109, I'd feel much more confident taking Davante Adams at that point. than I'm wanting to take a wide receiver at 105. So that's kind of my only complaint. Like I said, I think we're splitting hairs a little bit, but I would prefer, if I was sitting on the draft, I would probably always take Davante Adams over Michael Thomas, just because I think that I think I could project a much higher ceiling in terms of what I believe his target share is going to be in this offense, because there is literally nobody. The one aspect I will say that is a positive for Michael Thomas is if the fact if something were to happen to Drew Brees, he's got fucking Jameis Winston ready and waiting to be our QB1, and we're all just hyped about having Jameis Winston back in the league. So there is that. But other than that, like I said, I think you can't really go wrong with Davante Adams or Michael Thomas. But I lean towards Davante Adams just because I just think there's zero competition. Should easily see 170 targets in this offense.
Yeah, you're not going to get me to disagree about that at all. But I just think when it comes to, like I said, even if his targets dropped down like that 140 range, we still saw him finish as wide receiver 7 and wide receiver 5 on like that 147 to 149 range. Whenever you have a quarterback like Drew Brees who's going to complete 70% of his passes, and Michael Thomas is going to have like an 86% catch rate, like that. Do we want them to be deeper targets? Yes, because that's going to lend itself to more fantasy points. But if he ends up being a compiler of sorts, like your top end Jarvis Landry, almost, like, again, if he catches 120 balls for 1,300 yards and another 8 touchdowns or something like that, like you're not gonna hear me complain about that at all. But I do believe
you wouldn't be upset about that though, because I mean, thinking if he finishes, let's say, wide receiver 7 or 8, which isn't terrible, he still finishes wide receiver 1 for you, but you spent 105 draft capital on him, like that's not really what you're looking for. Like, he's not hitting value at that point. He's not killing you necessarily, but he's not giving you what you're necessarily looking for, because then he drops down, because I mean, he was 23 fantasy points per game last year, which was elite. Like, he was well above everybody else, and that's what made him so elite last year. If he drops down to like wide receiver 7, where he's giving you like 18 fantasy points per week, and then you look at that running back that's there at let's say Dalvin Cook or Alvin Kamara, and then 21, 22 fantasy points, I mean, that's a 3 or 4 point a week difference in terms of at that draft slot, right? And so I think that, for me, sours me away from Michael Thomas a little bit. Not that I think Michael Thomas is going to have some massive drop-off or anything like that, but I do think we do see a regression, and I think it's going to be enough to where at 105, at his current ADP, that I think that makes him somebody that I'm going to avoid. Like, I'll have 0 Michael Thomas this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's a different discussion if we want to get into what to do at that 105 slot. You know what I mean? But whenever we're looking at receivers, like, this is the decision you're going to be making. You're going to be like, for the most part, the 105 spot, we can definitely debate that. But for our throwdown purposes, whenever we're looking at Michael Thomas and Davante Adams, I'm going with Michael Thomas, just because if Adams doesn't get the double-digit touchdowns that he's had, like, which, I mean, obviously well within his range of outcomes. He's had, like 10, 12, 13 over the past couple of years. But if he doesn't get those, and he's not paired with the efficient Aaron Rodgers, because like you said, he's been sliding off the past couple of years, that could hurt him as well if he's not getting those touchdowns to go along with all those targets.
I mean, true. I mean, it should be said that Davante Adams was also hurt last year, only played in 12 games. The year before, he played in 15 games, where he had 13 touchdowns, almost 1,400 yards, 111 touchdowns
that year, I think.
Yeah, and 21.8 fantasy points per game. Yeah, which was first in the league. So, and he did that off of 169 targets. But he's much more similar. Not as bad, at least, as what Michael Thomas was. That's what, kind of the joke about Michael Thomas is he's just a slant guy. He just runs slants the entire game. In 2018, Davante Adams was 12.5 yards per reception, which was 62nd, which is still not good, and 8.2 yards per target, which was 46th in that same year. And he had 11.7 average target distance, which was 51st. So these guys are very similar. Neither one of them get a lot of deep targets, and that's an issue, because they're not somebody that's going to be able. They have to get the volume. They're always going to be safe. Their floor is always going to be fine, but that top end, high end ceiling, especially if you're taking them in the first round, because that's kind of what you're looking for. Because there's going to be multiple running backs that give you over 20 fantasy points per game, and if these guys drop off, and let's say a wide receiver 7 or 8, 9, that they're still a wide receiver 1, but they're not getting that top end value that you're looking for, because now you're passing on that running back that you could have had there. Let's say Miles Sanders, who finishes as top 3 running back, gets you 22, 23 fantasy points per game. And then, you're not happy about that because you passed on, somebody like that versus taking him. So both these guys are very similar in terms of they need targets. If they do not get their targets, we are in trouble.
That's all I have as well, man. We appreciate you guys listening in. If you're watching this on YouTube, again, please hit that subscribe button. If you're listening across whatever platform you're listening to on your podcast platforms, subscribe on there. Reach out to us on Twitter, on Instagram. We are basically everywhere. We are trying to go wherever you guys are to make your content life easier. Feedback, like, subscribe, do all that stuff. Reach out to us on Twitter. Let's get some conversation going. Let us know if there's a throwdown you want to see us do, and then most importantly, at Kev at FantasyRef13, let him know why he is wrong, and we will talk to you guys soon.